Alexander Hamilton, born in the West Indies on January 11, 1755, or some sources say 1757, there's a bit of uncertainty there, emerged from what most would consider humble and even tragic beginnings, being orphaned at a young age in a small Caribbean island called Nevis. So, Hamilton's early life was marked by hardship, and if you think about it, it's quite remarkable how he transformed that adversity into a relentless drive that propelled him across the ocean to the American colonies. Now, despite the lack of formal schooling typical of his time and place, Hamilton was largely self-taught, which is pretty impressive considering the breadth of his later accomplishments. He showed exceptional intellect and a talent for writing early on, and this was recognized by local benefactors who sponsored his education in New York, which was a major turning point. This sponsorship wasn't just a handout, it was a recognition of his potential, and Hamilton seized it with everything he had. Once in New York, Hamilton's education really took off, but what's interesting is that he didn't limit himself to just studying. He worked as a clerk, which gave him practical experience and exposure to the world of commerce and politics that was bubbling under the surface in the colonies. This combination of self-education and real-world work experience helped shape his understanding of economic and political systems, which would become crucial later on. And it was during this period that Hamilton's revolutionary ideas began to take form. The American colonies were tense places at that moment, with growing dissatisfaction toward British rule, and Hamilton's writings reflect this, showing his deep engagement with the cause of liberty and independence. When the Revolutionary War broke out, Hamilton didn't hesitate to throw himself fully into the fight. He joined the Continental Army, and his remarkable abilities quickly became evident, leading to his appointment as aide-de-camp to General George Washington. This role was significant because it placed Hamilton at the heart of the revolutionary leadership, giving him direct access to Washington and a front-row seat to the strategies and decisions that would define the war. It was a position that required not just military skill but also intelligence, loyalty, and the ability to communicate effectively, all of which Hamilton possessed in abundance. Hamilton's military career was marked by active leadership in several key engagements. One of the most notable was his role in the decisive assault at Yorktown, which effectively ended the war in favor of the American colonies. Hamilton's leadership there demonstrated both his bravery and his strategic insight, qualities that earned him respect from his peers and superiors. But beyond the battlefield, Hamilton's political acumen was also on full display. He used his pen as much as his sword, drafting important documents and speeches that rallied support for the patriot cause. This dual capacity as soldier and statesman was unusual but incredibly effective, showcasing Hamilton's multifaceted talents. Throughout the war, Hamilton's influence grew steadily. He wasn't just a military figure, he was deeply involved in the ideological and political battles that were shaping the emerging nation. His vision was clear. He believed in a strong centralized government that could unify the disparate states and provide a stable foundation for the new republic. This was a somewhat controversial stance at the time, as many favored more power for the individual states, but Hamilton's arguments were persuasive, grounded in his understanding of the weaknesses exposed by the war and the need for a cohesive national policy. This vision led Hamilton to play a crucial role in the Constitutional Convention, where the framework for the United States government was debated and drafted. His contributions were substantial, and he was one of the leading voices advocating for the ratification of the Constitution. To support this cause, Hamilton became a principal author of the Federalist Papers, a series of essays that explained and defended the new Constitution to the public. These writings remain some of the most important documents in American political history, illustrating Hamilton's intellectual rigor and his commitment to the principles he believed would secure the nation's future. Now, if you consider Hamilton's trajectory, from a self-educated orphan in the Caribbean to a central figure in the founding of the United States, it really tells you something about his character and talents. He was undeniably driven, and while some criticized him for being ambitious or even ruthless, it's hard to deny that his ambition was matched by a deep dedication to the nation's success. Hamilton's early life set the stage for his later achievements, and it's fascinating to see how his personal story intertwined with the broader story of America's birth. So, by the time the war was winding down, Hamilton was not just a military hero but also a rising political thinker whose ideas were shaping the future of the country. His early experiences, marked by hardship, self-education, and early revolutionary zeal, provided the foundation for his later role in building the American financial system and government institutions. It's a story of transformation, really, and it highlights how individual determination and intellect can influence the course of history. Hamilton's life at this stage was already a testament to the power of perseverance and vision, setting up the next chapters of his extraordinary career. Moving forward from his early military service, Alexander Hamilton's role in the Revolutionary War grew increasingly significant, and it's worth noting that he wasn't just some background figure. He was actively leading troops in key battles, showing a mix of courage and strategic thinking that really set him apart. One of the standout moments was his leadership in the decisive assault at Yorktown in 1781, which was essentially the final major battle of the war, and it's often credited with securing American victory over the British. Hamilton's command in that assault demonstrated not only his bravery but also his ability to plan and execute complex military operations under intense pressure, which earned him considerable respect from both his comrades and superiors alike. But Hamilton's contributions didn't stop on the battlefield. He was also a rising political figure during the war, using his exceptional writing skills and influence to support the Patriot cause beyond the fighting. He penned important documents and speeches that helped rally support and articulate the principles behind the revolution, which was crucial in maintaining morale and unity among the colonies. His talents as a writer and thinker were instrumental in shaping public opinion and giving the revolution a coherent ideological foundation. You could say that Hamilton was as much a soldier of ideas as he was a soldier in arms, which was a powerful combination. As the war concluded and the new nation faced the daunting task of creating a stable government, Hamilton's vision became increasingly clear and influential. He was a strong advocate for a centralized federal government, believing that a unified authority was essential to hold the fledgling states together and address the economic and political chaos that threatened the young republic. This was a contentious position, especially since many Americans feared centralized power due to their recent experience with British rule, but Hamilton argued that without a strong central government, the nation would be unable to thrive or defend itself effectively. This belief led Hamilton to take a central role in the Constitutional Convention of 1787, where the framework for the United States government was debated and ultimately drafted. Hamilton pushed for a system that would balance power between the states and the federal government while ensuring the latter had enough authority to govern effectively. His input during the convention was substantial, and although not all his proposals were adopted, his influence on the final constitution was significant. He understood that the success of the new nation hinged on creating institutions that could sustain order, promote economic growth, and protect individual liberties. To promote and defend the new constitution, Hamilton became one of the principal authors of the Federalist Papers, a series of essays written with James Madison and John Jay. These essays were designed to explain the Constitution's provisions to the public and persuade skeptics that the document would create a balanced and effective government. Hamilton's contributions to the Federalist Papers are particularly notable for their detailed arguments in favor of a strong executive branch and a robust federal government. These writings not only helped secure the ratification of the Constitution but also remain foundational texts for understanding American political theory. Hamilton's work during this period highlights his unique ability to combine practical experience with intellectual rigor. He was not just theorizing from an academic distance, he had first-hand knowledge of the challenges facing the new nation, from military defense to economic stability. This practical insight informed his advocacy for policies that would strengthen the government's capacity to manage debt, regulate commerce, and maintain public order. In many ways, Hamilton was laying the groundwork for modern American governance, advocating for structures and policies that could support a complex and growing nation. Throughout the post-war years, Hamilton's political influence continued to expand, and he positioned himself as a leading figure among the Federalists, the political faction that supported his vision of a strong national government. His ideas often put him at odds with other prominent leaders, especially Thomas Jefferson and his followers, who favored more power for the states and a more agrarian vision of America. This rivalry was not just political but also ideological, reflecting deep divisions over the direction the country should take. Hamilton's stance, however, was rooted in his belief that economic development, a strong financial system, and centralized authority were essential for the United States to fulfill its promise. What's remarkable about Hamilton's role in this era is how he leveraged both his military reputation and his intellectual contributions to shape the emerging political landscape. He was a visionary in the sense that he saw beyond the immediate challenges of the revolution and sought to build a system that could endure and support growth for generations to come. His work on the Federalist Papers and his advocacy at the Constitutional Convention are enduring testaments to his commitment to this goal. Hamilton's ideas about governance, finance, and national unity set the stage for the policies he would implement later as the nation's first Secretary of the Treasury. So, during this transformative period following the Revolutionary War, Hamilton was not simply riding the wave of victory, he was actively shaping what victory would mean for America's future. His efforts to promote a strong, centralized government and to articulate the principles underlying the Constitution helped define the political framework that the United States would operate under. Hamilton's ability to bridge the gap between revolutionary ideals and practical governance was crucial in transitioning the country from a loose confederation of states into a more cohesive and functional republic. His contributions during this time underscore why he remained such a vital figure in American history, embodying the complex interplay between war, politics, and nation-building. Alexander Hamilton's tenure as the first Secretary of the Treasury really marked the beginning of a new era in American governance, where his vision for a strong financial system took concrete shape, and it's fascinating to see how he laid down the foundations that would support the young republic's economic growth and stability. When Hamilton took office, the United States was burdened with significant debt from the Revolutionary War, and the economy was fragile and fragmented. So, his first priority was to create a financial framework that could manage this debt responsibly and instill confidence both domestically and internationally. This was no small task, and his approach was bold and innovative for the time. One of Hamilton's most notable achievements was the establishment of the National Bank, which was designed to stabilize the currency, facilitate government financing, and support economic development. The idea of a national bank was controversial, with opponents like Thomas Jefferson arguing that it was unconstitutional and favored wealthy elites, but Hamilton's vision was rooted in the belief that a central financial institution was essential for managing the country's credit and encouraging investment. He argued that the bank would provide a reliable mechanism for handling government funds and issuing currency, which would, in turn, promote commerce and industry. This was a foundational step in creating a modern financial system in the United States. In addition to the National Bank, Hamilton also devised policies for federal debt management, which included the federal government assuming state debts incurred during the war. This assumption plan was designed to unify the states under a common financial policy and establish the creditworthiness of the new government. By consolidating the debts, Hamilton ensured that the federal government would have the means to borrow money on favorable terms, which was vital for economic expansion and national security. This approach was also politically strategic, as it tied the interests of the states to the success of the federal government, fostering a sense of unity and shared responsibility. Hamilton's economic policies extended beyond debt management and banking. He advocated for tariffs and excise taxes to generate government revenue, which was necessary to fund public expenses without relying solely on borrowing. His financial program aimed to create a self-sustaining government that could support its obligations and invest in infrastructure and defense. These policies helped lay the groundwork for the emergence of the United States as a stable economic power, capable of competing on the international stage. Of course, Hamilton's initiatives were not without opposition. His political battles, especially with figures like Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr, were intense and sometimes personal. Jefferson's vision of an agrarian society with limited federal power clashed directly with Hamilton's industrial and centralized government ideas. This rivalry shaped much of the early political landscape of the United States, with the Federalists, led by Hamilton, advocating for strong national institutions, and the Republicans, led by Jefferson, emphasizing states' rights and rural interests. These debates were foundational to the development of the American political party system. The tension between Hamilton and Aaron Burr also culminated in one of the most infamous episodes in American history, the Duel of 1804. Burr, who was a political rival and perceived threat to Hamilton's influence, challenged him to a duel that tragically ended Hamilton's life. This event shocked the nation and underscored the intense personal and political conflicts of the time. Despite Hamilton's controversial and sometimes divisive nature, his death was widely mourned, and it marked the loss of one of the most dynamic and visionary leaders of the early republic. Hamilton's lasting impact on American governance and finance cannot be overstated. His ideas and policies established many of the principles and institutions that continue to underpin the United States economic system. From the National Bank to federal debt management, his work helped transform a fledgling revolutionary state into a more stable and prosperous nation. Hamilton's influence extended beyond his lifetime, shaping the trajectory of American economic policy and governance for centuries to come. Reflecting on Hamilton's legacy during this period, it's clear that he was a visionary leader whose ideas often challenged the status quo but ultimately helped define the character of the American government. His commitment to strong national institutions and economic development was critical in the nation's transition from chaos to order, and his work set precedents that still resonate in contemporary debates about federal power and economic policy. Hamilton's story during this era is one of ambition, innovation, and enduring influence, highlighting why he remains a central figure in understanding the founding and development of the United States. If you loved the story, like the video and subscribe.